Good on ya. How you doing today? Oh, I'm doing great. I can't wait to start the Cats and Bolts show with the #1 Florida hockey show. 3, 2, 1.
I love it. Ben, give us a wave to the crowd. That is Ben Castro, everybody, the producer to the stars, and welcome to, as the man said, Florida's favorite hockey show, Florida's #1 hockey show, the Cats and Bolts podcast. We're broadcasting from downtown Boca Raton, Florida, and the Podcast Junkie studio. I'm one half of the show, Rod Peterson. She is the better half. Just ask her, Sarina Taylor.
She knows.
And we have, When I say we don't fight when the guests are here, we're polite. She's already in a mood. So this is how we're starting, everybody.
Bullshit. I'm not in a mood.
She's just hangry. That's all.
She's not even that.
We've got viewer questions. It's another yard sale of a show here. But I don't even know what... We'll get a name for this, Ben, before we start. I don't know what the title will be. You can say the last preseason show or something like that, because we're getting ready for the regular season, Sarina. We're a week away. Are you ready?
As ready as I was a month ago. I haven't watched really any. We watched a little bit of the Rangers last night, but the intensity in the preseason is like a 1 out of a 10. Mm-hmm. It's just not super exciting. So I think we talked about this. I always liked opening night of Hockey Night in Canada. It was always so good just because of the whole broadcast overall. And you knew you were going to get to see some great games. But yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, there's really no wrong answer to that. But here's the thing. I've been following it closely. She's been a U.S. citizen for a long time now. You're becoming like most Americans that I know that are like, I don't care about the preseason, not watching, which is fine. I've been writing this column in the South Florida Tribune. South Florida, pick up a copy this week. I talk about the preseason. With all the goals that are being scored, like I've been at every game here. I facetiously say that to you. You are still following the National Hockey League. It's your league. So based on what you're seeing on Instagram and Facebook, what are your takeaways of September?
Guys getting injured.
Right.
A lot of guys still on teams. And I think the conversation we were having is like, how come some teams are playing 8 games, some only playing 6? These teams are traveling. There's a lot of travel involved here. A lot of time. Why are they spending so much time on that? You know, talking to our friends in Calgary, talking about how he's like, last week, he's like, we still have 65 guys here at training camp. It's a lot of work for everybody. So yeah, that's kind of some of the stuff I guess I've been hearing, but don't go out of my way to really find that much info.
But no, but that's, it's what's in front of your face. Right? And that's what you're seeing. You talked about the Rangers game we watched the other night. Artemi Panarin's been hurt. Patrick Laine in Montreal left a game. Their prized off-season acquisition. That's no small thing. William Nylander with the Leafs got cranked in the head, and he was taken from the game. Thomas Nosek got hurt of the Panthers in Game 2 against Nashville on that doubleheader. Was right in front of him. He was going hard to the net. And I don't know if he got tripped or not. I can't remember. But whack into the end boards. And it's just like, whoa. I did talk about this with your buddy Scott Morganroth today, the Motor City Madmouth from the South Florida Tribune on my daytime talk show, and we're like, what does the NHL need to do based on what you just said? Some teams are playing 8 preseason games, some are playing 6. That's very disjointed and very CFL-ish. That's odd that you don't play the same number of games.
It doesn't make sense. But as far as what should the league do, it's why the All-Star game has gotten so bad. Because guys don't want to get hurt. If you put any effort into going to the net, you increase your odds of getting hurt, which is why there was zero intensity in the All-Star game. And that's why there is in the preseason. But guys are trying to make the team. So you have a guy out there like Panarin, who's a sure thing, and other guys who aren't. It's a bad mix because somebody's going to end up hurt when you have a guy out there who's never played a game in the National Hockey League, and he essentially can't keep up to a guy like Panarin. It's just a bad mix.
Yeah, but it is what it is. So I was listening to an interview the other day with Bill Daly, the NHL's VP, deputy commissioner, and he said, we're going to look at this, the preseason. There's an appetite amongst the teams. Problem is they're all over the map with what they want. I would think, do the coaches want more games to evaluate? I don't know. I mean, the management might, but what's the answer? I would think it's what the NFL did a couple of years ago. Let's play less preseason games and don't play our vets at all. Is that possible in the NHL, do you think?
I think that's a little different question, because when you play football, it's one play at a time. There's usually only 2 offensive players involved on one play. In hockey, you have potentially 5 offensive players involved in one play. So how do you know if a guy can keep up with an Artemi Panarin if he doesn't play with him?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So you're playing against, we watched like the rookie showcase last year and all that. It's like, those guys are not NHL caliber, but it's a different game if you put them up with any forward that plays in the National Hockey League right now.
It's a good, and in football, the linemen are all crashing on every play. So you're right. How do you evaluate? I guess you get as good a read on it as you can, and you move into the regular season, because the NFL's still not playing their vets in the preseason. So it's not that different, but it's going to change. That's the summation of what we're talking about here. It's going to change because it has to change. And like you say, people don't care about the staff. The fans don't care, but they're still people. I think we talked about last week. Actually, we didn't on this show. The Panthers played in Orlando Wednesday night. They're back on the ice skating Thursday morning. Maybe it wasn't Maybe it wasn't the same players, but Maurice is out there. You know what I mean? Like the equipment guys are getting killed and the coaches. Anyways, enough about the preseason. Other than they're killing each other in Canada. I had your boy Alan May was on my daytime talk show today. He's a Washington Capitals TV analyst. He's like, those games, Ottawa, Montreal, guys were getting hurt. Because that's the way they were playing up there. Selling out the games. I didn't realize there was that big a discrepancy once you cross the 49th parallel.
Well, you're learning more each day.
Yes.
It's true, but there's a little bit more. People can afford to go to preseason games a little more than they can regular season games up there. So they want to go. They want to watch the guys. I guess it's just like the equivalent of us going to spring training to watch the Blue Jays.
Yeah,
we can afford to go, but they're not going to play everybody. But there's still the intensity. You're right, between teams like Ottawa and Montreal.
We went to Fort Myers to watch the Blue Jays, and thankfully her boyfriend did play, Alejandro. So you were happy that day.
I was happy, and he hit a home run.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
It was the highlight of the whole game.
It was the best.
We're going to dip into some viewer questions here today, and I appreciate those for answering the bell, which, by the way, everything has gone perfectly with this show. In my life, as Sarina will attest, it hasn't necessarily gone according to plan. This show has. We had to start this show, build an audience, and then have audience participation. You've all answered the bell, right, Benny? It worked perfectly. We love the viewers of the show. Yeah, it's been great. So, and Benny Cobbs is like number 1. He would be right in the front row, which I want to talk about doing a contest about a live viewer.
We could do a concert. You're not going to want to listen to probably either one of us sing. However, I do feel like we need to get Ben in here. How do we get Benny Cobbs?
Oh, it wouldn't be hard.
Well, let's
I don't think. Ben, you want to come watch a live show? Yes.
Okay.
But he's one of those guys that I haven't seen at a preseason game. I haven't seen hardly any of these people at a preseason game, which I didn't realize that was a thing. All my friends, Panther season ticket holders, are like, Rod, you want our tickets? You want our ticket? Why are you not going? But whatever. It's your deal. I'll happily take them. Anyways, Ben says, thanks for stopping by practice last week. That was his comment. I went and watched his, what they call the Special Hockey League. It was at the War Memorial. And I met his parents, watched Benny tear it up out there. Potted a couple, and Benny, I'll come back. You don't got to twist my arm to get me to go to a hockey rink, as you well know.
He's cute.
Yes, he's a very cute guy, Ben. Everybody loves him. That's what his dad said. He goes, the chicks all love Ben. He goes, they won't talk to me, but the chicks love Ben. I said, well, he's got something about him. Okay, moving on. Bure 1096. Remember him? He's back.
He came back.
Yeah, you're back. Okay. Oh, you knew he wasn't going too far.
Okay.
He says, of the acquisitions, who will have the most impact? And he's talking about the Panthers, but we might dabble in some Lightning too, because I was able to and fortunate enough to watch them Monday night on. Thad gave me his tickets for that game, and I sat with Brent from Wellington, Florida. But we'll start with the Panthers acquisitions. There's so many. There's a bit of a theme here as to what's the roster going to look like. I'm like, 60 guys. I mean, they finally cut somebody down. They announced it on Monday. But of the guys, Adam Boqvist, Jesper Boqvist, they both scored goals in the overtime win over Carolina here, which, by the way, that's the other thing. The games have been good. They haven't been killing each other, but the games have been largely entertaining. Adam Boqvist, Jesper Boqvist are newcomers, and they've been good. Brent asked me about A.J. Greer, newcomer, and what I think of him. I'm like, I don't know much about him. Does that name mean anything to you? He was a free agency signed in free agency. Not a big deal. So far.
There's a lot. Their thing is there's so many guys.
Yeah.
know.
That's the point. There's just a ton of guys. They're carrying two teams, or have been for most of the month. Nate Schmidt, I love. So if you're asking about, the acquisitions that were signed in free agency, that's a big one to me. He was the original Vegas Golden Knight, and he's been on the power play with Aaron Ekblad. But again, that's preseason where they're running 2 full rosters, so I don't know what's going to happen in the regular season. You watch the last couple of games in the preseason, give you a pretty good idea what they're going to do in the regular season.
Which are coming up quick.
Yeah.
Because the regular season starts not even a week away.
Yeah.
So we're within that time. But
yeah, Saturday, the Panthers play the LA Kings in Quebec City. That's the last preseason game. Saturday, October the 5th. Kings went up there to play a pair, which, by the way, I'm trying to remember. I mean, I am old, not getting old. But the Kings get out of LA for camp. They don't want to be in LA for camp. She lived in LA for 10 years. So
yeah, but I don't remember.
I don't really remember either.
I don't remember that at all for some. But I know the Kings, if there's a team that starts on the road in England or whatever, the Kings usually go. But they start that when they play overseas, they start the regular season like 2 weeks before. So they go over there, they play an official regular season game, and then they come back. But not as far as I remember. The Kings, their practice rink is actually in El Segundo. They don't use Crypto.com, is that what it's called? Yeah. They don't use the big rink in Los Angeles at all except for games. So I don't think they do. I think they do they were when I was there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they don't do it every year, but you longtime Florida Panthers fans, please help me. I'm trying to remember in the 90s, which you were still living in Canada, did they not come to Saskatoon for a training camp? I think the Panthers did.
They maybe came for exhibition game because there's always teams that play in Saskatoon and whatever.
Yeah. So it's been a long time. We're talking 30 years here. So we're trying to give ourselves a pass here. But I just seem to think that Bure, I think, and the Panthers had a training camp in Saskatoon. So what LA is doing going up to Quebec City isn't unheard of, but it's a long geographical distance to go to be the home team, in your preseason games.
That'd be a lot of fun, though. I think that's going to be a very culturally eye-opening situation for both of those teams. Quebec City is just such a unique place, and they love hockey. The province of Quebec loves hockey. It's all they do. It's all there is.
It's
really
number
not even
one
Quebec
there.
City anymore, but they'll love it.
Taz writes in with a question that everybody's talking about that I don't really like to address. He says, projected 4th line for the Cats. He goes, Jonah Gadjevich will have a breakout year if he's on it on the 4th line. Here's the thing. We've talked about it on this show for all month. I hate to say it. Don't get offended. But the Ryan Lombergs, the Nick Cousins, these kinds of the 4th liners are dime a dozens. So Jonah Gadjevich has had a great preseason. He's fought. He will be on it. He did not play in the playoffs because he was behind those other guys I just mentioned, Lomberg and Nick Cousins and whoever else they filled. Even Okposo, I think, was on the 4th line at one time. Everybody wants to know who those guys are going to be. I don't have any names. You named Gadjevich. He's one for sure. But that's not, like I'm watching the goalie situation far more.
I think Gadjevich was hurt last year for a while.
Yeah, maybe.
But either way,
still a dime a dozen guy. Yeah,
sure, but the thing with a 4th line, you can move guys up and down your 3rd and 4th line. You want guys on that 4th line that can move up to the 3rd line if needed. Maybe guys that can kill a power play, kill a penalty if needed. So sometimes it changes depending. And we've seen Paul Maurice. He's no fool. He'll change his lines if he needs to.
That's exactly.
So it's so hard to say. It's a decent question. It's just I don't think that we're ever going to have an answer to that.
It's a fine question. And by the way, for the Panthers fans the Lightning fans that are watching, and trust me, they write me, and they appreciate the Florida Hockey Talk. I should just back up with Bure 1096's question about the newcomers that will have the most impact. When I watched the Lightning here the other night and they beat the Panthers 3-1, Ryan McDonough, who's been reacquired by the Lightning, was playing his balls off. Back-checking like his life depended on it in a preseason game on a Monday. I think that's why they got him back, because they knew what they were getting.
I feel like McDonough is a Lightning player.
Yeah.
I just always, everywhere he went, and even after he left, I was like, why would they? Well, there's reasons they get rid of him, but he just thrives so well there. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's he enjoys living there, which obviously happens a lot. It happens here all the time. So, but he's just every guy, I think every player has that team. It's the team that is their team. It's what's sewn into them. And I think that Ryan McDonough is a Lightning player.
Yeah, these are just a few of the names. I had a personal friend, I've been writing about it in the South Florida Tribune. Jaden DeRoe played 2 preseason games for the Lightning and was sent down to Syracuse on Monday. Yet they kept this guy by the name of Connor Geekie, who you would be familiar with from the Western Hockey League, split last season between Swift Current and Wenatchee. I'm like, Jaden is at least as good as Connor Geekie, but he's still there? We don't all see the same things.
Sure, but I think first of all, DeRoe was hurt so bad, and
a year ago.
He lost a year. He's a little bit older than Geekie. So they probably know what they're getting with him. They're going to send him to the minors and help him grow. With a kid like Geekie, they're like, he's either going to play in the NHL or we're going to have to send him down, but we don't know yet. We don't know what he's going to do. I think Connor Geekie is an unbelievable hockey player. So they're maybe just, like I said, they know, I think, with guys like DeRoe that they need a little bit more grooming in the AHL. Well, it's fine.
And by the way, Geekie was really good for the Lightning the other night. So they still have a very good personnel and scouting department. I will say this, though, that there are a lot of Tampa fans here that are still pissed that Stamkos is gone because they told me at the rink the other night. I don't know what it's going to take for them to get over that. They may never get over that. It's like you and Gretzky. Yeah, for them, it's their version.
It's like this much compared to that, yes, but they literally are to the point there where they lost a franchise player. They've had a lot of franchise players in Tampa. You look at guys like LeCavalier. Those guys, that's a franchise team. Guys want to be there. So when you lose a guy like Stamkos and it was his decision, that is a tough pill to swallow for fans. It's horrible. He never got traded. He chose, right?
Every freaking show we talk about Stamkos, they gave him no choice.
But it doesn't matter.
Had to
he
go.
never got traded. There's a big difference between Wayne got traded. Come on, man.
I know what you're saying.
But this is the point. It's really hard for them because they're going, okay, the team didn't do this, so we can't be pissed off at the team. It was Stamkos. That's what I'm saying with that. You know what I mean?
I don't think the fans make the distinction. And sorry.
In Edmonton, they literally kidnapped Peter Pocklington when he traded Wayne and were going to kill him. They know the difference. Well, they know the difference. Tampa, they might not. But
if you ever would watch the documentary,
there's no way.
The 30 for 30 King's Ransom on this exact story, I do believe she won't watch it because it hurts too much. And that's fine. It's your life, your thing. But did Wayne not that day get pulled aside by Glenn Sather and said, you can nix this trade if you want? And Wayne said, it's okay. I'm going to go.
Wayne said, I stand by I'm a stand-up person. If this is what has to be. Glenn Sather could have pulled. He's about to go out for the press conference to tell the world that he just got traded to the Los Angeles Kings and he's absolutely heartbroken. And somebody comes up to him and says, I can pull the pin on this. A guy like Wayne Gretzky is not going to renege on a deal that's already been made. He's not Eric Lindros. He could have been a dick, and he wasn't. And that's the one thing that I take out of that whole thing is what a good human being he was. It wasn't his fault. He got traded. The trade was already done.
I get it. It reminds me of my first wedding. I won't say who, but we're literally buckling up our ties and everything, and somebody said, if you don't want to do this, you don't got to do this. What am I going to say? No. It was similar.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You're standing in the church. So we'll do this. Should have taken the advice. Are we moving on? Kelly writes in and she says, what are your thoughts? Don't cut that one, Ben. On the Hunter. What are your thoughts on Hunter St. Martin? I was impressed. He's the young, I think, 6th round draft choice of the Panthers out of Medicine Hat. He's young. I didn't think he was a very good skater, but I know that the Panthers are extremely high on him. He's gone back to Medicine Hat. He will develop there. But a 6th round pick is very late. I know the fans got all excited about him. I think they like the name Hunter St. Martin. He's going to be on one of the best teams in the Canadian junior this year, Medicine Hat. So let's see how he does up there. I think he's got a long ways to go to be a NHLer. By the way, when do you think we will stop talking about Stamkos? When I stop bringing it up, or?
You're the one that's controlling the show. So, when are we going to stop?
Do you actually think that?
I've offered to that. Nope. Rod gets out his little pen, which is fine by me because I have enough on my plate than to organize this podcast.
She's too busy. Oh, yeah.
I work more than 2 hours a day on my other show. There's that.
Anyways, Stacy writes in.
Benny.
Which, by the way, nice laugh back. Whose side are you on?
Ben's on the right side.
He's on the sunny side. Whatever side that is. Stacy says, what are your thoughts on Spencer Knight's performance? You need to go to the South Florida Tribune and read my column on that this week, because here's the thing. I did a Twitter Spaces on Tuesday night where I actually talked about the Tampa Bay Lightning. I represented the media there on Tampa, but it got around to Spencer Knight. Have you felt they just love Spencer Knight here? The fans, the team. He's got this massive pass, which is fine. I mean, I'm a goalie guy. He seems like a great kid. But he has not shut the door. His first preseason game, he was outstanding. I think it was 14 of 14 shots he stopped against Nashville. He was good. Then he gets torched for 6 in Carolina last Friday night on 21 shots. The other night, he was okay. That was, I think, the Carolina game. He hasn't been perfect. But just to go back to where I said, they just love Spencer Knight. They just want him to be that guy. Hey?
Yeah, they put a lot of stock into him when he was that guy. And he was a great, they knew he was just going to be a backup in Florida. But that's where, when we talk about the difference between how the coaches and the management see it versus the fans, this is why, everybody loves Spencer Knight. But again, he's another player that missed a lot of time for whatever reason. When you're out of the game for that long, it's really hard to pick it back up. Maybe that's it. Maybe all he needs to do is get a few games under his belt and he'll be all right. But the team is going, we have to decide right now who our backup is going to be. We can't be wishy-washy with our backup, because if Bobrovsky gets Tagovailoa, we're screwed. We don't want to be the Dolphins. And that could potentially happen, again, on any team where the starting goaltender gets hurt. So they're trying to figure it out. You only get so many chances as a goaltender to get your chance. You don't get as many chances as a forward does to prove yourself. If you have a terrible game, you're out. You're not playing the next one. Look at the World Juniors at Canada. They always take 2 solid goaltenders, and they don't ever have a solidified starter until one proves himself more than the other. And that's tough to do in only like a 5-6 game tournament. But they go with who they feel is hot. Spencer Knight's kind of in the same boat. Hey, if you're going to shit the bed here a few times, you're going to lose your chance. I know the fans love him for what...
And I think the team does too. But he came in hot into this preseason and dipped. He was up here, went down here, and now he's about right in the middle. And I think Billy sat in this chair last week, Bill Lindsay, and said they're going to carry 3 goalies in the regular season. Basically, Spencer Knight's made the team. I think what you're saying is he going to be number 2 or number 3? That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah. I wouldn't consider a backup goalie to be a third-string guy for verbiage terms.
Only one guy can go into the net.
Right. Be the backup.
When Bob's either hurt, needs a rest, or is getting blown out. And who's that going to be? And I think it will be Spencer Knight by hook or by crook. I think he could be better, to answer your question. And that's a guy that played the position and has studied it my whole life. And I'm pulling for him too. From Darien, Connecticut, we've all know his whole story. Moving on. G-Tron, with a question, says, will the salary cap increase, help Florida and Tampa Bay in the offseason of 2025?
No.
It'll help the players. Sorry, go ahead. You obviously have a strong thought on that.
Everyone's on the same page.
Right.
Everybody is on an even playing field, and all that's going to do is increase the player salaries. Yeah, there's some guys that are on 10-year contracts, but all that does is just increase the third and fourth line guys like Austin Matthews and Leon that are locked in. That's just going to open up more cap space there, but it doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it helps anybody.
Well, listen, Bill Zito, as far as I'm concerned, until I see otherwise, gets a pass on everything. He will figure it out. As he has said at the draft last year, we're going to spend it all. But you got the Nick Cousins of the world making $800,000 a year. That is basically NHL minimum. I don't think those guys are going to get more. I think the cap is going to go to the stars.
Yeah, I would think so. But again, like I said, that just puts everybody on the same playing field. What's the difference?
Yes, how they use it is different.
Of course, yeah.
Not everybody's going to. Well, look at the Oilers. They got money tied up in 2 guys. Here, they got the money tied up in a goalie. I don't think they don't regret that. You know, again, Dale Talon sat in this chair and said he would do that contract again. I can't believe how much people still talk about Bobrovsky's contract, which, by the way, I will give you some kudos. I have not talked to you about this. We had an argument at home the other day about who would you take, Sergei Bobrovsky or Connor Hellebuyck, and I was dismissive. I said it's not even a contest. So a lot of people do agree with you. I still don't. But I guess if you for your franchise, who would you rather have as your number one?
The reason I said Connor Hellebuyck, the couple of reasons that I said Connor Hellebuyck, Bobrovsky's playing in paradise. He's got no pressure from the fans. He can walk out and go for a swim in his pool in his backyard at any time he wants. People are living the life of luxury here. Why do you think Paul Maurice is here and not Winnipeg? Connor Hellebuyck is an American-born player playing in a Canadian city that is under pressure all the time. That guy is never wishy-washy. Bobrovsky, you don't know what you're going to get year to year with that guy. He hasn't had a solid career. And he's obviously been good enough to, it only takes one time. It only takes one game, clearly. But that's all they needed from him was to do what he did over the past couple of years, get them where he needed to be. Connor Hellebuyck hasn't been on as good of a team. You got a guy like Vasilevsky. I personally think Hellebuck's a better goaltender than Vasilevsky, but Vasilevsky's been unbelievable because he's on a stacked team. So I think Hellebuyck is more steady and he plays in a place with a lot more pressure, which makes him tougher, and that's why I picked him.
I still go with Bob. Like, I don't agree with her, but I'm saying there are people that do agree with you, which you probably didn't need to be told that. I'm sure you're very confident with your opinions, but come playoff...
Are you reflecting?
Reflecting?
Deflecting? You're
No, I'm actually trying to stroke your overinflated ego.
Oh, wow. Everybody comment who has a bigger ego at this table.
I don't think you want that. I don't think you want that.
Oh, by all means.
Anyways, Hellebuyck last year, 5-game series against Winnipeg, blew up. And they said afterwards, what happened, Connor? And he goes, I don't know. That wasn't me in there. Yeah, it was. I saw you give up 7 goals in game 1 against Colorado. So,
but again,
you don't see Bob doing that.
Sure, but Bobrovsky was bad for 7 years essentially here before he did anything.
Well,
that's why
he hasn't even been here that long.
Well, whatever. But that's why people were crawling up Dale's ass about why did you sign this clown? He's been terrible for 3 years.
And Dale stuck to his guns and maybe got fired over it. I just still don't really know the details of why Dale was fired here, and I don't really want to ask. But he doesn't regret signing him.
I wouldn't fire Dale Talon if he spit on me.
Right, but they did.
Right.
And I don't think it was maybe the Bob had something to do with it. I don't know. I know that it's a sore subject with everybody, and I don't really want to touch sore subjects as much as possible. One question that is burning on me is this. I know you didn't go to the Tampa game the other night, but you followed it a little bit. I don't know if you watched it on Scripps or not. But has Tampa done enough? It kind of goes back to Bure's question to be a playoff team. Because when I was doing this Twitter Spaces the other night, all the guys basically had Boston, Toronto, Florida as the tops in the 3. Like, throw them up in the Atlantic. Throw them in the air. 1, 2, 3. Right? But Tampa was not in that at all, which tells me their playoff spot's in question. I still think that it is.
Well, I mean, there's a difference between them being in the top 3 then making the playoffs. Everybody throws Toronto up in the top 3, but we all know year after year, as sure as we know the sun is going to shine in Florida, the Leafs are going to take a shit in the playoffs. So it doesn't matter if the Leafs end up in 1st place or 8th place and get in the playoffs. They're not going to win anything. We all know that. With a team like Boston, Tampa, who knows, right? I think Boston is going to continue to be a strong team like they normally are. They just always are. And that's how I feel about Tampa. Tampa doesn't have the team without Steve Stamkos that they do with him, but I still don't think that they're the type of organization like the New Jersey Devils or Buffalo where they're just going to fold even though they have a lot of good players. There's just too much winning in that organization for them to roll over and die.
Are you willing to bet the house on them making the playoffs, though? Like, would you be surprised if they missed? Or no? Would that shock you?
I don't know. It would have to see how the season went.
Yeah.
You know, like if we look at the first round of the playoffs this year, to be honest, I was shocked Tampa didn't win more games of that series based on how they played. They weren't terrible. They had some games where they played really well, but I was shocked that they didn't play better in said games. They had a better team.
Well, that's
than what they showed.
We're circling around on the same thing, and you're welcome, Lightning fans, because I don't know where else you're going to get talk like this. But I'm sitting there in the rink the other night, American Bank Arena here, watching the Lightning, thinking about how I think they barely put up a fight in the playoffs last year in a 5-game series that they lost. Barely put up a fight. Stamkos scored in every game, or at least he averaged a goal a game, but he's gone. And I'm sitting there going, what has gone on in this team that we don't know about?
Well, that's kind of what I was alluding to. They had a good team. They played that team that that game that they won in Tampa. They were dominant. I mean, that's the Tampa Bay Lightning of old. Everybody I was like, where has this been? But again, it just goes back to, sure, Stamkos scored a goal in every game. Who cares? They lost.
No, but if everybody else had done that, they'd have won.
Sure, but they just were like lackluster based on what their talent level was. So heading into the playoffs, am I going to be surprised if they don't make it? It depends on how they play throughout the season. I wasn't surprised they lost the first round because they weren't playing that well, right? That's all I'm saying. Same as the Rangers. As soon as they played, I was like, they're cooked. You can see when the Rangers are and then done.
They went right off the cliff.
Just, they don't have the winning attitude. They don't have the winning in their blood that the Lightning do.
And whoever gets credit for that, whether it's John Cooper or whatever, I just saw that here the other night. They are still the Lightning.
They're 100%. That's how I feel. They're always going to be the Lightning. Even last year, I think Detroit underperformed a little more than people thought. I think a lot of people put a lot of stock in Detroit, and I was like, but they're just never terrible. They're never the Buffalo Sabres or the Chicago White Sox. You know, they're just Detroit.
They also haven't made the playoffs in a long time, but I think they're the ones that get in, and Tampa doesn't. The last thing I want to bring up, I referenced the interview with Bill Daly on NHL radio on Monday, listening to it while running at Johnny O's. They brought up expansion. And can you put the camera on her? She got upset the second I said it.
I gave the old,
eye roll.
Are you fucking kidding me?
They're talking going to 34 teams in the NHL or 36 teams in the NHL. I don't. You tell me why you think. I don't know why it is. So you tell me why you think. Money? That's all.
I would have no idea. What did I say to you last night? You're like, it doesn't make sense why some teams play 8 preseason games and others play 6. And my response was, what part of the NHL has made sense in 30 years? It's the NHL. Nothing makes sense. I've said this time and time again. It is the worst run professional sports league on the planet. It's absolute garbage. You have way too many teams, which means you have way too many games, which means you have way too many teams that don't make the playoffs, which means you have teams that sit for 5 months and teams that sit for 2. It makes no friggin' sense. People can't afford to go to the games. They're not filling the rink. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. But Gary Bettman wants to push the game in the U.S. He wants to push in southern states. Where has that got him? There's way too many teams in this league as it is right now. I'm going to bet my ass that the Florida Panthers do not sell out every game this year. They're not going to. They just aren't. People can't afford to go to hockey games all the time. It makes no sense why you would add more teams into a league that is already diluted in talent. Why are we having a conversation about why there's 65 guys at a camp still and why guys are getting injured? Because there's too many talentless players assigned to each team. If we go back to 1985, there was 21 teams in the league. Every guy on every team was a solid player. 4 lines, solid players. Now we're having a conversation about what dumbass is going to play on the 4th line of the Panthers. I don't know. Nobody's really that great. So we'll put them on the 4th line and see what they do. This is not how hockey should be played. So you want to expand and put more guys who are terrible athletes in there? You're an idiot.
I didn't plan to hit a nerve like that. Trust me, I didn't. You're welcome. I just put that right on the tee for you.
I actually said, I was like, I don't think I have it in the tank today. I'm just really tired. There's going to be something. But it's always about that idiot running the National Hockey League. And there's so many people that agree with me. It's not like I'm coming and pulling this stuff out of my ass and I'm like, this is stupid. There's proof that expansion, look at all the teams that expanded since that fool came in here and they're gone. Atlanta,
well,
they might get another team now. What are we talking about here?
It's interesting you say that. Did Billy say it or somebody said it recently? They're like, it's going to be even harder for your favorite team to win the Stanley Cup when they go to 34 or 36 teams, and that just bears that all out. What you're saying. Now, the NHL, I've said it a million times on this show, they come out of a year where they made $6.2 billion. I'm not the biggest business guy. But I've talked to my hockey business people, and they said it's nothing that they're doing other than 2 new teams, Vegas and Seattle. More revenue and ticket sales, right? Merchandise sales. That's from John Shannon from Hockey Night in Canada that told me that. So if that's what it takes to increase the revenues that much, then you will see more teams.
But
right?
I mean, most of that
Follow
stuff
the money.
Goes to the teams. Sure, the National Hockey League makes money off of owners that want to buy a franchise. If you are doing this for the money, that's why he needs to go. That's why Bettman needs to go. We need to get another guy in there that's not about the money. A guy like Steve Yzerman that played in the National Hockey League, that knows the game. Bettman doesn't know the game.
That will never happen. That will never happen.
I know, but I'm just saying, I'm not saying Steve. I'm somebody that's smart. Steve Yzerman ran the Lightning very well, right? Just guys that know the game and they know what's good for the game and they played when the game was good. It's not good anymore.
But the owners don't care because they're making money and they give Bettman credit for that. And look at the commissioners, by the way. Adam Silver, Rob Manfred, Roger Goodell. None of them are cool. They're all business guys.
Yeah, but
There's no ex-players in there.
Roger Goodell runs a fine league. The NFL is probably the best run league in the world. You don't see them expanding to 37 teams. They don't expand. They don't need to.
No, they take their games around the world.
Sure.
And their revenues are going through the sky anyways. So, hey, it was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, balls. Let's end on that.
Thank you, Betty boy. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the questions and comments. We'll see you next week here on Cats and Bolts.
Oh, we hit Ben.
I hit his mic.
That was a close one.